I got nothing to start this show off with other than this. I am with my man, Glenn Fife. He's going to do an excellent job today for us because John's on IR. He's got a bad hip or back or something. I don't know what the hell he's got. He's got something. Actually, he's traveling. But, and then we got Jared. And Jared, I got to tell you something. People want to see what you've got, man. You've got all these cool things. I mean, what do you got today? We got a NASDAQ that's starting to scream back up to the upside, and that follows last Friday when the Dow was moving to the upside. The NASDAQ was there they go.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
I get it.
oh, that bear got whacked.
Bulls on the parade right there.
Let me tell you something. If you were a bear for the last couple of days in the market and you didn't realize something that we all talked about, right, Glenn? I mean, how many times we say the deal will get done. It's going to happen in the 11th hour. And Dad got it. That's just the way it is. It's transparency at its very best. It's what government does. It's what the Fed does. They all do it, but they tell you, and people still don't really understand it.
Yeah, it's exactly what we've seen with Powell, right? He's continued to mention that he's going to hike, and he's stuck by that, except for the 1 month. And we're seeing the markets move in continuous fashion with this transparency that we see out of Washington. So I think it continues, and I don't know why traders continue to try to bet against it, but I say don't fight the Fed, like we said on the way when they were doing QT, and we got to continue that way. So
never fight the Fed, never. Those guys are big. They got a big stick. You just got to be smart. You got to trade with them, and if you do that, you got yourself an opportunity for success. So this is the Rebel's Edge. He's Glenn Fife. He's Jared, and I'm Pete Najarian, and John is out right now. So the heck with him. We don't need him. We can get through this thing just fine. It's going to be great. Let's hit the macro minute, Glenn. Let's get after it right away. So here we go with the macro minute. My thought is this. You know, everybody focuses on the financial things and everything that's going on from that perspective. Well, it's not always just about financial. China, Taiwan, and the U.S., we got some issues going on, and you better keep track of that because I'll tell you what, it's kind of bubbling a little bit, Glenn, but it's bubbling a little bit hotter, and it's getting me a little bit more uncomfortable all the time. Keep that in the back of your mind while you're trading. What do you got?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly why I always look at the VIX, right? We're trading down into the 14s, and it just continues to move lower. So we look at something like that and say, hey, is this going back into the 10 to 14 range, into that low volatility like we saw in 2019, where markets just kind of grinded higher in this low vol, environment? Or are we going to see a bottom here and, see some of these headlines that come through that maybe puts a little pressure or some scare some investors, and we see that volatility start to creep back up into the 15s up to 18 and 20?
Yep. Well said. That's absolutely right. All right. Now we're going to go to the fantastic future. That's a big beauty. I love this. Terry's getting a lot of freebies from us recently. I don't know why over there at the CME, but there you go. But that's it for today, bro. You don't just get these things every single day. Well, I guess every day you probably do. Anyway, I'm going to hit this. How about nat gas? How about crude oil? We all know what OPEC did. That's not going to kick in until July. We had a nice bump up, especially in nat gas, but also in crude. And then we kind of pulled back again. So it's going to be interesting. I think you need to keep an eye on this thing. Obviously, crude's been moving up and down for a variety of reasons, but specifically OPEC has been the big axe, and that's something to keep an eye on. So keep an eye on that right now in the energy space. What do you got, Glenn?
Yeah, we're seeing that trickle into the futures for the S&P, right? ES futures are moving higher. I was just talking to our resident chart master, Brian McCormick here, Market Rebellion, and he seems to think that we can maybe make a move up to 43.50 after this breakout that we saw after this little consolidation pattern that we saw in the futures market. So look for that to maybe hit in the coming day or so as oil moves higher, and these energy names start to trade a little higher too to help it.
All right. That's outstanding. Great explanation. And now we're going to move on. We've got 4 stocks. We're doing 4 stocks, minute and a half each. And I'm going to start this whole thing off. It's going to be pretty good because Palo Alto Networks. Now, what happened? Well, Palo Alto now going into the S&P 500. Dish is out. And it's now up. It was up about 5%. It actually is in the 52-week highs. That's going to be pretty impressive. when you look at this company, Glenn, I'm impressed in every single way. When you're talking cybersecurity, they've done everything right. They traded about a 444 PE, but they've got the growth to get that number, and it's not something that's actually overpriced. When you look at revenue growth of 24%, they've got pipeline work that they talk about that's got 35%. There is a lot behind the scenes. It's a great balance sheet. They've got great free cash flow. I like this company a lot. I don't think it's done. I think it can go higher. What do you think of this name?
Same. I'm in full agreement. I mean, if you look at the chart, if you're a chart person out there, it's been in a multi-month consolidation pattern for a while now. And so it's just breaking out of that. And I think this thing can continue higher. It's about time, as we see, this space has just continued to grow more and more every year. And I think it's just going to continue doing so, especially with the international countries, and we see a lot of headlines come out of that. So it's more important now more than ever.
And when you talk about AI, these guys are the kings, at least they self-proclaim themselves as the kings of AI in the cyberspace. So keep an eye on that, because that obviously is a topic that everybody talks about every single day now. AI, and it's been working. All right, we're going to talk a little Apple now. Why is that? Well, we got the Worldwide Developers Conference, all this stuff everybody gets all wound up about, and all the different products and everything else, right? Well, this time I think it's got a little bit more than just the normal, because they're not just upgrading this and adding memory to that and speeding up this. They're talking about what they're doing in the Reality Pro and the VR world and the blah. It's just crazy. But in a nutshell, Glenn, they've got a product out there that's going to be $3,000 for people to purchase, so they can get themselves into this world of AR, VR, all the acronyms you can think of. And what do you think? I mean, you're a younger guy. You got me by quite a few years to the downside. A guy like you, if you've got that money, are you going to go out and spend $3,000 on something like this?
Absolutely not. No, if you can buy a PlayStation for $500, why am I buying this VR headset for $3,000? That's about a MacBook Pro right there. I think what this is, I think it's going to be geared more towards the commercial space and the industrial space, using it in the medical industry. I think we saw that with Vuzix way back in the day, almost 10 years ago now. We've seen it with Microsoft and Google Glasses, where those products have really actually excelled more in that, in the business space versus the consumer space. And I think that's where this is kind of headed. Sure, maybe as time goes by, they'll find a way to lower that cost and make it more affordable for families and kids. But I think until then, it's gonna play into the role for businesses more than the consumer. But one thing that I want to highlight, though, is we have continuously seen paper come through on the UOA markets, unusual option activity, as we call it in Apple. I mean, just last week we saw 8,500 of the June 192.50 calls being bought. We saw 10,000 of the 205s calls being bought for the end of the month, and we've seen more paper come in today too. So it's something to look at there. By the way, we do have a special run. If you want to buy one, get one for unusual option activity, go to marketrebellion.com/bang. You can see the link below there and check it out. But because you don't want to miss more of this Apple paper that just continues to flow in. And like we've seen, Apple's moving higher today.
One of the things why Apple is king, Glenn, is they come up with new revenue streams every few years that are absolutely crushing it, right? You had the services, and then you go with everything that gets balled up in with the iPods and all the earpods, all those things. And it's just amazing. Apple has done an incredible job of not only building themselves out, but what they've done in fintech, what they've done themselves in the financial world. They have done so many things, and this adds to it. The one pushback I'd have about the $3,000, it's a hell of a lot of money. But about a year ago, if somebody said to you, maybe 2 years ago, hey, you're going to buy an Apple phone for $1,000, you would have said, no freaking way. Well, they're $1,000. So, you never know, Glenn. It's amazing. All right, next, we're going to hit Tesla. Now, Tesla's interesting for a lot of different reasons. Every single day, almost every single day of the year, it is the #1 stock for option volumes per day. And when I say volumes, it's not just the total volume. I'm talking about call side volume, which is normally somewhere 60% or higher. in Tesla. So this is a very active name. It's actually passed up what we just talked about, Apple. Apple used to be that. Now it's been Tesla for at least the last year. Absolutely incredible what they do. There are days where they trade 3, 4, 5 million contracts in a day just for them. By the way, we traded 55 million contracts overall on Friday. Huge numbers. But Tesla, they're getting involved with the superchargers, which is really going to be something because that gives them the opportunity. Ford all of a sudden signs up. Now all of a sudden your competition is coming in and giving you a new revenue stream. How great is that? And their China numbers look pretty outstanding. So Glenn, I'm looking at Tesla. I think there's a little bit of runway in front of them.
Yeah, I think so. Elon just continues to prove the doubters wrong. Mm-hmm. And he's doing so by bringing on another big player who is, I think, afraid to be left behind. Similar as we saw with the moves in like Netflix and Blockbuster, right? You don't want these older manufacturers to be left behind. And so I think this centralization of the charging unit will be really key, especially as this EV space continues to be adopted by consumers. And we see that move out of gasoline powered vehicles, right? So it's really important, and they have the best charging stations out there. There's so many of them now that it's a lot easier to find those than it is for any other type of plug-in. So I think this is the right move here for Ford, and obviously Tesla is going to benefit. And I think you're going to see those bigger players come in and partner with them as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. Next, we're going to hit EPAM. Now, we haven't talked about this name. It's not a name we talk about all the time. It's Production Engineering Company. Doesn't sound all that exciting. IT services, if you want to put it in that category. But they did something you never want to do, but you got to be honest, right? And what they did was they gave an outlook today that was significantly different than the outlook that they had not too terribly long ago. When you do that, stock's going to get hit. Now, stock already had been hit. Stock was already getting closer and closer to the 52-week lows. Today established new 52-week lows. So it's a big problem. It's not easy navigating these markets. They talk about the demand and some of the nervousness that people have out there, apprehension. They don't want to spend money, this, that, and the other. That's kind of what happened to this company today. Absolutely getting crushed today, unfortunately. But I don't know, Glenn, what do you think? I mean, is this something that if you were a bottom feeder, would you actually go for it? Or would you say, you know what, I'm going to catch the next boat?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have too many things moving higher. What's the point of trying to pick something that's at a 52-week low and that can just continue to move lower, especially as funding tightens up and you see businesses scale back, right? Last thing you want to see is, or you want to do is try to take a shot on something like this that, just might just continuously get hit, especially if, the markets start to cool off here as we just continue to grind higher, like I said earlier. So, yeah, it's not really something that I'd like to take a hit on. I'd rather look at something that's making 52-week highs instead of 52-week lows.
Maybe a Palantir, maybe something like that. There's a lot of names out there that are moving to the upside, and it's pretty interesting. We see all the option activity that flows in a lot of these various names. Nobody's coming into EPAM, and nobody's coming in looking for upside, at least not yet. Maybe they will. We'll see. All right, we going to jump to some sports, Glenn? Are you ready, big dog?
Let's do it. My favorite section.
For anybody who doesn't know, this guy, former general manager of the Houston Texans. No, he wasn't, but he was part of the Houston Texans. He was part of that organization. He loved working with he had J.J. Watt and all these great guys. So Glenn knows his sports, guys. One of these days, Glenn, you guys are going to get an NHL team, by the way, down there in Houston. In the meantime, we got the NBA games going on, right? Everybody got on the Nuggets. The Nuggets don't lose at home. The Nuggets haven't lost at home during this entire playoff stretch. Well, until yesterday. I watched that game, every second of it. Jimmy Butler, you're a stud, man. The dude every week comes out, he balls, and he feeds the ball to the guys that need to get the points, and they do a great job. And they finally took down the giant, right? And the giant in this case being Jokic. Well, they took him down yesterday. It was a phenomenal game. They're going back to Miami. I don't know if they can get 2 out of Miami, but if they do, Glenn, they're going to be going back to Denver with about a 3-1 look on their and a big smile on their face and everything else. Everybody participated. That's what made the game so fun. When you look, you're always looking. You had Gabe Vincent. He did a great job. You had Duncan Robinson, who he kind of looks like a guy from like the Ivy League who's going to walk around and talk like he's got a pipe in his mouth or something. Meanwhile, the The guy was money in the fourth quarter. He had all 10 of his points in the fourth quarter. Jimmy Butler caught on fire with threes. Everybody was shooting really, really well for Miami. It was a fun game to watch. Glenn, do they got any shot to maybe get two more down in Miami when they're at their house having their fun? They're not in those mountains like they were just playing in Denver.
Yeah, I think people are doubting how well this series can play out. And I think, you know what, don't doubt Jimmy. He said it the series before, and I'd say it now. Don't doubt him because he's a leader on that team, and he really motivates those guys to push forward. And we saw that run in that fourth quarter. I mean, that's something that really impressed me. And I think they might have found something here where they can attack Denver and make, you know, I don't know if they actually take both games down there, but I think that they can split one and then bring it back up. And I think this is a series that is going to play out to be tougher for Denver than we all thought after game one, where they really just dominated. I think we're going to see a really nice series out of these two teams, even with the ranking disparity between the two teams, especially in the regular season. But, you know, I'm an NFL guy, and so I want to talk a little NFL. So the QBs we're watching for this year, let's bring it up. I mean, I know you got some names out there that you're really eyeing in the QB world.
Yeah, looking at these quarterbacks. So, by the way, you know what ballers do? Whether you're in football, hockey, basketball, or anything else, you do it in the fourth quarter because everything is great first, second, third. But let me tell you something. The Miami Heat, they put it on them in the fourth quarter. That's where the game was won, and that's where games are won by the ballers, and that's when they took over. I got three ballers that I want to throw out to you, Glenn, and see what you think about these guys because I think there's some quarterbacks out there that have got to prove us a little something. I'm going to start with number one, Jimmy Garoppolo. Got a hell of a lot of money from the Las Vegas Raiders, right? He goes over there. He's got the contract. Nobody knew about the contract, but there was something in the contract about him having an issue with his leg still, right? The surgery that he had to go through, all the rest of that. Are you concerned about that? Do you like the guys that they've got behind him? Next, how about Deshaun Watson? Used to be one of your buddies down there in Houston. He's now up in Cleveland. He had to sit out, 700 days from his last game to his first game last year. So a long time to sit out for a lot of the right reasons, apparently. But is he going to be able to be a baller this year for Cleveland? They got a lot of pieces around him. And lastly, I'll throw out another team down there in Texas that you might like, might hate, Dak. What about Dak? Can Dak do it? Because Dak has not really looked that great, in my opinion. And you know what? If Dak's not great, the Dallas Cowboys aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, and I do like the Cowboys this season to at least make the playoffs. I think they have some solid players, but I mean, they just continuously struggle every year to find those pieces that can really fit around Dak. We've seen it, Elliott really drop off, and so it'll be interesting with Dak. For me, I'm looking at the young guys from the last couple of years, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. Those two guys need to step it up, especially Trey Lance has quite a big competition out in San Francisco to earn that starting job. We'll see if he can do it because those are two high draft picks that those teams took a shot on, and they struggled. And so it's going to be key to see them turn it around. I think the other one, too, is like you said with Watson. I think they've pieced together a good team there in Cleveland. You got great running backs there as well. So if they can, if he can really, get the rust off, because that's a lot of time to sit out and not get that game time that you're really used to for your whole career, especially from high school on up to college. I mean, you're playing every day, and that's really hard to get off of you. So knocking that rust off is going to be key for him. But I think if he can repeat some of the magic that we saw when he was at the Texans with us, then they could put together a really good season out in Cleveland.
And the people who don't forget, he was at Clemson and he was a baller. I mean, he was unbelievable. It's how he ended up at Houston, did a great job there as well. So on the field, he did an amazing job. Trey Lance has not yet done an amazing job. He looks the part. He might be the part, but he's got to be healthy, and he hasn't been healthy, and he hasn't been much of a contributor to the team. And they got a bunch of other guys, including Brock Purdy, who could maybe take over as quarterback. I mean, you just never know. Obviously, there's injuries there as well. But I'll tell you what, you brought up Fields, and I thought that's a really good one to bring up because what I saw Chicago do this offseason was incredible. And I was talking about this yesterday on this radio show that I do up here in Minnesota called The Huddle. It's on Odyssey. And it's a lot of fun. And me and a guy named Dave Schwartz is my partner. I was kicking around this idea, Glenn. So let me throw this one to you there, Mr. General Manager. So they've got a couple linebackers they picked up and paid a hell of a lot of money to. They picked up some D-line. They picked up some offensive line. They have done everything in the power that they've got to get him into the position that is Fields to have a great season already in year 2. But here's the thing. Dalvin Cook is a free agent. You know who has the most room under the salary cap of all 32 NFL teams? It's the Chicago Bears. They got $30 million left. Well, hell, you can get Dalvin Cook for a hell of a lot less than $30 million. Maybe it's 15, somewhere in that ballpark. They get Dalvin Cook, and now all of a sudden you got a running game, because I'm not going to put you in a spot, but there's nobody on the planet Earth right now who can tell you who a running back is for the Chicago Bears except guys on the Chicago Bears, because they're nobody. They got nothing. So if they get Dalvin Cook, things get pretty damn interesting in the city you're sitting in there right now in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if they can make that move, that would be huge, because you're taking that pressure off of Justin Fields, right? Mm-hmm. And he's just, he's a guy who's a freak athlete who could make plays happen, but at the same time, you don't want him to have to do that and scramble and maybe get hurt, right? So you want to take that pressure off of him. And I think a Dalvin Cook could be a huge addition to doing so, and would help him, continuously just progress as he's a young quarterback still. He's got a lot of room to grow. And so that will really help. And like you said, they have the most cap space. They could make it happen. I think they need to make it happen for Chicago to really have a chance here. They added some pieces on the defensive end, like you said, that helps keep Justin off the field and keep but at the same time, it's all about the offense, especially this day and age. And they need to put some more pieces around him, I think, before they become a playoff team.
And Dalvin could be one of those pieces. I'll tell you what, that's good reckless speculation on my part. So I'll take it. I'll take the heat from anybody who wants to throw it back, but that he fits in well. All right, Glenn, outstanding job. Really great to have you with us. You got a lot more hair than John, so you brought a little handsomeness to this whole thing. So I appreciate that as well. This is the Rebels Edge. Great day today. We'll see you tomorrow, noon, 1 p.m. Eastern. Giddy up. Let's get after it.
Bang.